Rakeyan Jayagiri was born into the noble lineage of the Sunda kingdom during a time of relative peace and renewal. His birth was believed to be a celestial omen, as a halo-shaped rainbow encircled the peak of a sacred mountain the day he was born. This mountain, which would later bear his name, became a symbol of his destiny. From a young age, Jayagiri was recognized for his deep introspection and connection to the spiritual energies of the land. The name Jayagiri is composed of two Sanskrit roots, Jaya, meaning victory, and Giri, meaning mountain. Thus his name translates to victorious mountain, a prophetic title that symbolized both his eventual rise to the throne and his spiritual grounding. He was born to a royal mother from a coastal lineage and a father who was the reigning monarch of the Sunda heartland. This union gave him the bloodline of both sea and land powers, positioning him uniquely to unite factions within the kingdom. His early upbringing took place in a royal monastery-like palace nestled near the base of Mount Tangkuban Parahu, where sages, poets, and warriors instructed him. Unlike his more militaristic predecessors, young Rakeyan was drawn to meditation, the study of sacred texts, and the observation of nature. His family encouraged this path, believing it would prepare him to be a different kind of ruler, one guided by wisdom rather than conquest. Jayagiri's family was steeped in ancestral pride, tracing their roots to the great King Sanjaya of Java and to the founder of the Sundagalu dual monarchy, Prabu Redikandayun. This illustrious ancestry meant the expectations placed upon him were immense. However, he carried them with quiet humility, often retreating into the forests and hills to seek divine clarity. By the time he reached adolescence, Rakeyan Jayagiri was already known across the Sunda lands as the Prince of the Sacred Peaks, revered for his serenity and his mysterious affinity with mountain spirits. Rumors abounded that animals would follow him in the forest, and that he could calm storms with whispered prayers, signs, people believed, of a chosen sovereign blessed by the gods. As a youth, Rakeyan Jayagiri was not raised in the usual extravagance of court life. Instead, his early education took place under the tutelage of hermits and Brahmin sages at sacred sites across Pasandan, including Mount Kendan and the shores of Lake Talagawarna. These places were believed to hold spiritual portals, and it was here that he learned about cosmic order, dharma, and ancient Sundanese cosmology rooted in animism and Hindu-Buddhist synthesis. Unlike many princes trained in war first, Jayagiri was instructed to harmonize the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether through meditative rituals. His profound inner stillness gave him heightened perception and empathy, making him a natural leader in spiritual and ethical discourse. His encounters with mountain ascetics sharpened his sense of purpose. They foretold that he would reign not only from a throne but from the peak of an unseen realm, guiding the balance between the natural and human worlds. During this period, he became familiar with sacred heirlooms and weapons inherited from earlier kings, such as the Kujang Pusaka Jayagiri, a ritual blade said to only respond to rulers with a pure spirit. It is said Jayagiri first awakened this blade in a secluded ceremony beneath a sacred fig tree, where it shimmered with firelight upon his touch. This marked him as divinely appointed. Jayagiri's spiritual awakening culminated in a long meditation atop the summit of the mountain that would later bear his name. There, he received visions of ancestral kings and cosmic guardians who urged him to rule not through conquest, but compassion. The mountain revealed secrets of the land, geothermal rhythms, the lifeblood of the rivers, the silence of ancient stone temples that shaped his destiny as king and protector. This stage of his life transformed him from a contemplative prince into a visionary ready to ascend the throne. When the time came, his father, now aged and ailing, stepped down, convinced his son had surpassed him in both worldly knowledge and spiritual maturity. Thus began the reign of King Rakeyan Jayagiri. Rakeyan Jayagiri's coronation was unlike any seen before. Held at the spiritual nexus of Mount Jayagiri and Lake Lembang, it was conducted not by court priests alone, but by a conclave of sages, mountain shamans, and community elders. The event was marked by silence, firelight, and the sound of nature rather than fanfare, symbolizing a reign rooted in cosmic balance. His rule was characterized by ecological stewardship, spiritual diplomacy, and cultural renaissance. Rather than expand the kingdom through war, Jayagiri strengthened its soul through inner reform. He patronized temple building, not just for religious purposes, but also as schools and centers for astronomical studies. The kingdom's architecture blended seamlessly with the terrain, built using sacred geometries inspired by Mount Meru. Economically, his reign ushered in the development of mountain agriculture, introducing terracing techniques that preserved forest integrity while increasing productivity. He sent envoys to distant lands such as Bali, Srivijaya, and Kadiri, not as conquerors but as seekers of knowledge and cultural exchange. This diplomacy earned the Sunda kingdom a reputation as a spiritual center of the Western archipelago. Jayagiri's court became a gathering place for poets, astronomers, priests, and healers. He revived ancient Sundanese scripts, codified ethical laws based on cosmic principles, and formalized rituals for the protection of sacred groves. His charisma lay not in grandeur, but in his ability to speak with clarity about the unseen forces shaping the realm. Despite his peaceful nature, Jayagiri maintained a powerful royal guard known as the Pasukan Angin Gunung, Mountain Wind Guard, trained to defend the sacred peaks from invaders and rogue warlords. Their discipline and camouflage techniques became legendary, acting as both protectors of the king and of the mountain spirits themselves. Though Jayagiri's reign was largely tranquil, there were moments that tested his spiritual leadership. The most defining was the Great Rift of Kiater, when a powerful earthquake tore through the highlands, displacing hundreds and cracking temple foundations. Rather than seeing it as a natural disaster alone, Jayagiri interpreted it as a message from the earth, a reminder that harmony must be restored between mankind and nature. He commissioned the rebuilding of temples using more sustainable materials and redirected palace wealth to reforestation and water conservation. He also introduced sacred festivals honoring the spirits of the land and ancestors, recentering the spiritual relationship between people and nature. Another turning point came when a group of rebel nobles, unhappy with the king's lack of military conquest, tried to dethrone him and install a warlike cousin. Rather than wage a bloody civil war, Jayagiri used diplomacy and spiritual debate to disarm their cause. In an iconic council held on the slopes of Mount Tilu, he spoke for 3 nights about the cost of war, the illusion of glory, and the power of humility. The rebels, moved by his words, laid down their arms and submitted. He also faced challenges from outside. Raiders from the southern coasts tried to breach inland passes. In response, Jayagiri deployed the Mountain Wind Guard and invoked spiritual protection rituals. According to legend, thick fog and disorienting winds, believed to be conjured by the king's prayers, led the invaders astray into canyons from which they never returned. These episodes confirmed his power not only as a king, but as a living guardian of the land's metaphysical equilibrium. His authority grew in quiet strength, feared by enemies not for the sword, but for his perceived command over the mountain and sky. Having ruled for many fruitful decades, Rakeyan Jayagiri felt the call of the mountains grow stronger in his later years. In a final act of humility, he announced his abdication in favor of his eldest son, a prince raised in similar values of wisdom and service. The ceremony was held during a lunar eclipse, symbolizing the end of one cosmic cycle and the rise of another. After abdicating, Jayagiri retreated to a hermitage built high above the cloud line near the summit of his namesake mountain. There he lived simply, meditating, writing spiritual treatises, and mentoring seekers who came from distant lands to study under him. His physical body never died. On the night of his final meditation, the mountain trembled gently, and a pillar of light was seen rising from the peak. His robes were found neatly folded, but his body was gone. The people believed he had attained moksha, a release from the cycle of death and rebirth, ascending into the spirit world as a mountain guardian. A temple shrine, Pura Jayagiri, was built at the site and remains a place of pilgrimage to this day. Locals leave offerings there for safe journeys, blessings of rain, and protection from earthquakes. His name is still invoked in mantras by Sundanese priests and mountain farmers alike. Even after his passing, Rakeyan Jayagiri's vision of harmony continues to shape the philosophy of Sunda. His life became a parable of enlightened rulership, not through dominion, but through resonance with the land. Long after his passing, the legacy of Rakeyan Jayagiri continues to resonate profoundly across the Sundanese highlands, not only in name but in the living memory of the land and its people. Mount Jayagiri, now situated near the modern town of Lembang in West Java, is more than just a geographic feature. It is regarded as a sacred guardian mountain. Locals believe the mountain is still inhabited by the spiritual essence of the great king, who watches over the forests, waters, and people who dwell nearby. Offerings of incense, flowers, and rice are placed at secluded shrines along the trails leading up its slopes, and whispers of his name can often be heard in sacred invocations during traditional ceremonies. The surrounding region, particularly the Jayagiri Forest Reserve, is protected in part due to ancient laws believed to have originated from the king's ecological edicts. Modern environmentalists have found echoes of Rakeyan Jayagiri's sustainability principles, embedded in the way local Sundanese farmers maintain agroforestry practices, interweaving trees and crops, and practicing water conservation in harmony with ancestral teachings. Some elders still recite verses from the Kitab Gunung Jayagiri, which, though largely lost, survives in oral fragments preserved in Pantun, Kawi, and Tembang Sunda. In Lembang, Festival Jayagiri is held every year during the full moon of the dry season. It brings together communities from across West Java to honor the king's memory through dance dramas, wayang golek, mask performances, topeng, bamboo instrument orchestras, angklung, and poetic chants, pupa. During this event, a symbolic procession to the summit retraces Jayagiri's final pilgrimage, often led by traditional spiritual leaders and ecological activists alike. The king's image, while not preserved in sculpture, due to the iconoclastic simplicity of Sundanese spiritual tradition, lives vividly in local legend. He is described not in royal garments, but in simple white robes with a crown of forest leaves. Always walking barefoot across the land he vowed to protect. Children learn of him through bedtime stories that emphasize humility, inner strength, and harmony with all beings. Farmers plant trees for Jayagiri, believing the act to be both an offering and a promise to safeguard the land. In recent years, Rakeyan Jayagiri has inspired scholars and artists alike. His story has been adapted into graphic novels, stage performances, and philosophical essays that explore the concept of cosmic kingship, a ruler not merely of people, but of energies and harmony. Universities in Bandung and Sumedang have named ecological and philosophical institutes after him, further institutionalizing his memory in the academic sphere. The sacred geography of Gunung Jayagiri, Siburial Spring, Kawah Jaya Sakti, and Hutan Waringin are now protected not only by tradition but also by regional law, designated as cultural heritage sites. Spiritual retreats, especially among the Sundanese diaspora, continue to return to these places in search of inner balance and ancestral connection. His vision lives on in the hearts of those who seek balance, not domination, and in every footstep placed gently on sacred soil. Thus, Rakeyan Jayagiri's reign, though long past, has transcended time. His rule shaped not only the cultural and ecological foundations of the Sunda Kingdom, but also laid a spiritual blueprint for future generations. His body may have vanished into the misty summits, but his spirit remains eternally carved into the mountains, forests, waters, and the collective soul of his people.